Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're talking all about startup lessons.
Lessons learned the hard way.
Yeah, the ones that you really, sometimes you got to skin your knees to figure it out.
That's right. Yeah, we've definitely had our fair share of stumbles and face plants on our entrepreneurial journey.
More than our fair share, I
Right.
think, but you know what? That's how you learn, right?
Absolutely. You got to break a few eggs to make an omelet.
So true. So today we're sharing some of the biggest lessons we've learned from our own startup experiences, the things we wish we knew when we were starting out.
The kind of stuff they don't teach you in business school.
Exactly. The real nitty-gritty stuff that you only learn by being in the trenches.
And making a whole lot of mistakes along the way.
So let's dive right in. One of the biggest pitfalls we see founders fall into, and one we've definitely been guilty of ourselves, is building a product just because they love it.
Without really considering if it solves a real problem for anyone else.
Yeah, it's so easy to get caught up in your own excitement and passion for an idea and think that everyone else is going to be just as excited about it.
Right. You fall in love with your own creation.
Exactly. But the reality is that most people don't care about your product unless it solves a real problem for them.
A problem that they're actively looking for a solution to.
That's a great point. It's not enough for your product to be cool or innovative. It has to be useful.
It has to make people's lives better or easier in some way.
Like, remember that time I spent months developing an app to help people organize their sock drawers?
The sock drawer organizer? Oh man, that was a classic.
I was so convinced it was going to be a game changer.
You were so passionate about sock organization.
I was. But you know what? Turns out most people just don't care that much about their socks.
Or at least not enough to download an app for it.
Lesson learned. So how do you avoid falling into this trap of building something nobody wants?
Validation. Validate, validate. You need to get out of the building and talk to potential customers as early as possible.
Ask them about their pain points, their frustrations, what they're struggling with. Don't just pitch your idea to them. Listen to what they have to say.
And be open to feedback. Be willing to adjust your vision based on what you learn.
Because at the end of the day, you're not building a product for yourself. You're building it for your customers.
And if they don't want it, it doesn't matter how much you love it.
So true. Okay, now let's move on to another crucial lesson that we've learned the hard way.
Financial discipline.
Oh yeah, this one's a biggie. We've seen so many startups with great ideas and talented teams fail because they didn't manage their money wisely.
It's easy to get carried away, especially when you have investors throwing money at you.
Yeah, you start thinking you're invincible. But the truth is that money doesn't solve all your problems.
In fact, it can often create new ones if you're not careful.
It can lead to a false sense of security and make you think you can just spend your way to success.
But that's rarely the case. You need to be smart about how you use your resources.
Exactly. You need to track your burn rate, understand your unit economics, and make sure you're not spending more than you're bringing in.
And you need to treat investor money like it's your own. Because in a way it is. They've entrusted you with their capital.
So don't take that lightly.
Yeah.
Use it wisely and responsibly.
Okay, so we've talked about validating your idea and being financially disciplined. What's another key ingredient for startup success?
The founding team. You can have the best idea in the world and a solid financial plan, but if you don't have the right people on your team, you're setting yourself up for failure.
The founding team is like the engine that drives the startup forward. It's the group of people who are going to make the vision a reality.
And you need to make sure you have the right people in the right seats.
People who complement each other's strengths, who can fill in each other's gaps, and who are all aligned on the company's mission and values.
And just as importantly, you need people who can work together effectively, who can communicate openly, give and receive feedback, and resolve conflicts constructively.
Because there will be conflicts. That's inevitable. But it's how you handle those conflicts that will determine whether your team thrives or implodes.
Exactly. So choose your co-founders carefully. And make sure you build a strong foundation of trust and mutual respect from the get-go.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, but we've only just scratched the surface of what it takes to build a successful startup. All right, so let's talk about another common mistake that can derail a startup.
Losing focus.
Exactly. In the early days, it's so tempting to chase every shiny object that comes your way.
Oh yeah, we've definitely been there. You get so excited about all the possibilities and you want to do it all.
Right. You think you can be everything to everyone.
But the reality is that trying to do too much at once is a recipe for disaster.
It spreads you too thin. You end up doing a lot of things mediocrely instead of one thing really well.
And that's what happened to Jawbone. Remember them?
Yeah.
They were pioneers in the wearable space.
Oh, yeah. I had one of their Bluetooth headsets back in the day.
They had some really cool products,
Mm-hmm.
but they tried to do too much at once. They were making headphones, speakers, fitness trackers, even medical devices.
And in the end, they lost focus. They lost their edge, and they ended up getting overtaken by more specialized competitors like Fitbit.
It's a classic case of trying to be a jack of all trades and master of none.
Focus is essential for startups. You need to identify your core value proposition and stick to it.
Don't get distracted by every new trend or opportunity that comes along.
Stay laser focused on what you do best and build a strong foundation for growth.
Okay, so we've talked about focus. Now let's talk about timing.
Timing can be everything in the startup world.
Absolutely. We've seen brilliant ideas fail because they were simply too early for the market.
Like Webvan, for example.
Yeah, Webvan was an online grocery delivery service that launched in the late 90s.
Way ahead of its time.
They had a great idea, but the market just wasn't ready for it.
The technology wasn't quite there yet. The infrastructure for delivery wasn't in place, and consumer behavior hadn't caught up.
And as a result, Webvan burned through hundreds of millions of dollars and went bankrupt in 2001.
But fast forward to today, and online grocery delivery is booming.
Companies like Instacart and Amazon Fresh are thriving.
Because the market is now ready for it, the technology has improved, the infrastructure is in place, and consumers have embraced the convenience of online grocery shopping.
So timing is crucial. You need to make sure that the market is right for your solution.
If you're too early, you might end up like Webzan. If you're too late, you might miss the boat altogether.
It's all about finding that sweet spot where your product or service aligns with the needs and desires of the market.
Now let's move on to another important factor for startup success.
Adaptability.
Yes. In the startup world, things change constantly. You need to be able to adapt to new information, new challenges, and new opportunities.
We've had to pivot our business model multiple times over the years,
And every time it felt a little bit like jumping off a cliff.
but it's essential to be willing to change course if necessary.
The companies that cling too tightly to their original plan are often the ones that fail.
Like Blockbuster, for example. They were the kings of the video rental world.
But they failed to adapt to the rise of streaming.
They were so focused on their brick-and-mortar stores that they missed the opportunity to become the Netflix of their time.
And as a result, they went bankrupt in 2010.
Netflix, on the other hand, started out as a DVD rental by mail service.
But they were smart enough to see the writing on the wall, and they pivoted to streaming.
And now they're one of the biggest entertainment companies in the world.
So the lesson here is clear. Don't be afraid to adapt. Be willing to experiment, to iterate, and to change direction if necessary.
The startup world is all about survival of the fittest. And the fittest are the ones who can adapt to the ever-changing environment.
Now I want to touch on one final point that's often overlooked but incredibly important.
Founder well-being.
Yes, building a startup is incredibly demanding. It can take a toll on your mental, physical, and emotional health.
The long hours, the constant pressure, the uncertainty, it can all add up.
It's easy to get burned out, to feel stressed and anxious, and to neglect your own well-being.
But it's so important to take care of yourself.
If you're not taking care of yourself, you're not going to be able to perform at your best.
You need to make time for sleep, exercise, and healthy eating.
You need to cultivate strong relationships with friends and family.
And you need to learn how to manage stress and cope with setbacks.
Because building a startup is a marathon, not a sprint.
And you need to be in it for the long haul. Yeah, it's so easy to let your startup consume you, to forget that you're a human being with needs and limits.
It's like you become so fixated on the finish line that you forget to pace yourself.
And that's when burnout hits, and it can hit hard.
Oh, yeah. I've been there. It's not pretty.
So what's the antidote to startup burnout?
Well, first and foremost, you need to prioritize self-care. Make time for things that bring you joy, whether it's spending time with loved ones, pursuing a hobby, or simply taking a break from the hustle.
It's also important to build a strong support system of people who understand what you're going through.
Mentors, advisors, friends, family, they can provide invaluable support and guidance when you need it most.
And don't be afraid to seek professional help if you're struggling. There's no shame in asking for help.
Absolutely. Your mental health is just as important as your physical health.
Okay, so to wrap things up, let's recap some of the key takeaways from today's deep dive.
We talked about the importance of validating your assumptions, being financially disciplined, building a strong founding team.
We also discussed the need for focus, timing, adaptability, and founder well-being.
These are all essential ingredients for startup success.
And while there's no guarantee that following these principles will lead to a billion-dollar exit,
They will definitely increase your chances of building a sustainable and fulfilling business.
and that's what it's all about, right?
Absolutely. It's about creating something you're proud of, making a positive impact on the world, and enjoying the journey along the way.
So if you're an aspiring entrepreneur, or even if you're just curious about the startup world, we hope this deep dive has given you some valuable insights.
And remember, we're here to support you on your entrepreneurial journey.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next time.